A woman used a charcoal face mask every single night for 2 years, convinced she was purifying her skin, and instead her face turned red, raw, and permanently scarred. If you want to understand exactly how an everyday habit can quietly turn against you, subscribe and stay with us. This channel breaks down real medical cases, the kind that start with something ordinary and end somewhere no one expected. A 29-year-old woman, we'll call her H, walked into a dermatology clinic with 3 complaints. First, a persistent burning redness across her cheeks. Not warmth, not a blush. A burn that never cooled. Second, skin so tight that it stung when she smiled, as if her own face had shrunk a size too small. And third, flaking. Fine, endless flaking that no moisturizer would calm, no matter how thickly she layered it on. Picture her sitting in that clinic chair, shoulder-length light brown hair, warm hazel eyes, a friendly, approachable face with the subtle laugh lines you get around the eyes by 29, average build, a plain neutral top, soft natural skin tone, an ordinary woman, except the redness sat on her cheeks like a stain that would not wash out. The medical word for that redness is erythema. Break it apart and it's simpler than it sounds. Erythema comes from the Greek erythros, meaning red. That's it. Red. And on H's face, the erythema spread in a butterfly pattern, blooming across both cheeks and reaching over the bridge of her nose, wings on either side of an invisible spine. Look at where the redness sits. The cheeks. The bridge of the nose. Remember that pattern, because it matters more than it looks like it should. When the doctors asked her to describe how it felt, she didn't reach for medical language. She said her face felt raw, like a scraped knee that never scabs over. Think about that image for a second. A wound that stays open, skin that never gets the chance to heal, exposed and stinging day after day. And she was frightened, genuinely quietly frightened, because here's the part that made no sense to her. For 2 years, she hadn't been neglecting her skin. She'd been trying to fix it. Every effort she made, every night, was supposed to be an act of care. She thought she was doing something healthy, something good. So what was she doing? Every single night, without missing one, she peeled a black charcoal mask onto her face. She'd spread it thick and let it sit while it dried, tightening, hardening, pulling the skin taut into a crackling black shell. And when it was fully dry, she gripped an edge and ripped it away. In one long, satisfying pull, she was convinced she was dragging impurities out of her pores, lifting the dirt straight off her face. And here's the thing. The tighter it pulled, the more purified she felt. That tightness was the reward. That sting was proof, in her mind, that it was working. If your skin has ever felt tight and clean after a mask, pay very close attention to what comes next, because that belief that a stronger pull meant a deeper clean is exactly where the trouble begins. 700 nights of that ritual. The same crackling shell, torn away, over and over. She thought each removal was progress. She had no idea it was the opposite. But here's what makes this case genuinely hard. The doctors couldn't just look at her and blame the mask. Not yet. A red, burning, butterfly-patterned face is not a simple thing to explain. That exact picture can point in several very different directions, each one a different disease, each one demanding a different treatment. And to find out what was actually destroying H's skin, they would have to work through every one of those possibilities. Carefully, one by one. To find the truth, the doctors had to rule things out, one by one, because a red, burning, butterfly-patterned face can mean several very different things, and the wrong answer would send treatment in the wrong direction. The first suspect was rosacea. That is a chronic vascular flushing, a condition where the small blood vessels in the face open too easily and stay open, leaving the skin permanently red. It fit the color. It did not fit the story. Rosacea builds slowly over years, and it tends to settle in the central face and stay there. But H's redness had appeared where she masked, and it spared the skin she had never touched, the edges of the jaw, the hairline, the corners of the eyes. Rosacea does not draw those clean borders, so the doctors set it aside. The second suspect was contact allergy. This is an immune reaction, your body deciding that some specific ingredient is an enemy and attacking it. The tell is timing. A true contact allergy flares within hours of exposure to that one trigger, and it fades when the trigger's gone. So they ran patch testing. They taped a grid of tiny allergen samples to her back and waited to see which squares turned angry. The result came back clean. Nothing lit up. No single ingredient was the villain here. That suspect was gone too. The third suspect was infection. bacterial or fungal, something living and multiplying on the skin. That kind of process runs on a days to weeks timescale, and it announces itself. Pus, a fever, a spreading edge that creeps outward a little more each morning. H had none of that. No pus, no fever, no spreading edge. Just a steady, even burn across both cheeks that had been there for months without moving. Infection dismissed. And here's a rule worth holding on to because it is the quiet engine underneath all of this. Timescale. How fast a thing happens tells you what kind of thing it is. Seconds point to blood vessels, to something in the plumbing, a clot or a bleed. Days to weeks point to infection, to something growing, and years point to something slow and structural, something wearing down or building up out of sight. Keep this rule in mind. It is how doctors tell a heart attack from a slow-growing tumor. Seconds, days, or years. H's trouble had crept in over 2 years. Not seconds. Not weeks. Years. Slow. Structural. And when you strip away the exotic diagnoses and follow the simplest path, the one that requires no rare coincidence, you land where Occam's razor always lands. On the one thing she did every single night, without fail, for 2 years, to see the damage, you need to see what she was damaging. The outermost layer of your skin is called the stratum corneum. Stratum meaning layer, corneum from the Latin for horn, because those cells are hard and flat like tiny scales, and it is built exactly like a wall. Picture a brick wall, bricks and mortar. Hold that image because it is the whole story. The dead skin cells are the bricks, and the mortar between them is made of lipids, fats, specifically ceramides, and fatty acids. That wall does 2 jobs. It holds your water in, and it keeps the world's irritants out. Now, bring back the mask, a peel-off charcoal mask, painted on, left to dry into a crackling black shell, then ripped away in one satisfying pull. That is not cleaning. That is a demolition crew. Every single removal tore mortar out of the joints and lifted bricks clean off the wall. And a healthy barrier needs time to rebuild what it loses. 4 to 6 weeks. She gave it less than a day. Here's the cruelest part. On the nights her face felt worse, tighter, angrier, she did not stop. She masked harder, more often, convinced she just needed to purify deeper, so the wound got deeper. So the nightly mask was the demolition crew. But that raised a stranger question the doctors kept circling back to. The charcoal itself has saved lives for over 200 years, so how could something that famously pulls deadly poison out of the body be the thing quietly wrecking her skin? Because charcoal has a real resume. Activated charcoal has been used medically since the early 1800s, and there is one story doctors love to tell about it. Picture a lecture hall in France, the year 1813. A chemist named Michel Bertrand stands in front of his colleagues, and in his hand is a dose of arsenic. Not a little, a lethal dose, enough to kill everyone in the room. He mixes it with activated charcoal, and then, in front of witnesses, he swallows it. And he lives. He lives because in the gut, charcoal behaves like a molecular sponge. Its surface is riddled with microscopic pores, and toxins stick to that surface and get carried out of the body before they can be absorbed. That is called adsorption with a D, meaning things cling to the surface rather than soak in. A man drank poison on purpose to prove this, and it worked. But wait for what it means for your face, because here's the twist that clears the charcoal completely. Skin is not a gut. In the gut, charcoal is swimming through a slurry of dissolved toxins, grabbing them molecule by molecule. On intact skin, it just sits there. Your outer layer is designed to keep things out, so charcoal resting on the surface absorbs almost nothing meaningful. It cannot reach into a pore and pull impurities out. That was never happening. The blackness that ripped away each night carried no poison, no toxins, no impurities. It carried pieces of her. So the charcoal was innocent. The damage came from the mechanical trauma of the peel, and from how relentlessly often she did it. Back in the clinic, H's condition finally had a name. Not rosacea, not allergy, not infection, over-exfoliation, and chronic barrier damage. And here is exactly what that means at the level of the cells. Remember the wall? Dead cells are the bricks, and the lipids between them. The ceramides and fatty acids are the mortar. Every night, that crackling black shell was ripped away, and it took mortar with it. It lifted bricks. The wall needs 4 to 6 weeks to rebuild that mortar. She never gave it 4 to 6 hours. She did it again and again, roughly 700 nights in a row. So the wall stopped being a wall. Water that the mortar was supposed to hold and evaporated freely, which is why her skin felt tight and stung when she smiled. Irritants that the wall was supposed to block walked straight through. and the nerve endings that are meant to sit safely behind that barrier were left exposed, firing at everything, which is why it burned. The redness, the erythema, that word again, from the Greek erythros, meaning red, was the visible signature of inflammation that never got to switch off. A self-inflicted wound, reopened every single night. The treatment was almost embarrassingly simple. Stop. No masks, no exfoliants, no actives. Nothing that scrubbed, nothing that peeled, nothing that tingled. Just a gentle cleanser and a ceramide-rich moisturizer to lay down the exact mortar she had spent 2 years scrubbing away. That was it. The most powerful thing she could do for her skin was to leave it alone, and the wall did what walls do when you stop knocking them down. Within 2 weeks, the burning eased. By 8 weeks, the redness had faded. Her cheeks, once that raw butterfly of erythros red, finally looked calm again. Not perfect. Faint scarring from the chronic inflammation stayed behind on her cheeks, a quiet, permanent reminder of what those 700 nights cost. But the fear was gone. Her face was hers again. So here is the lesson, gentle and firm. More is not better for skin. Your barrier heals on its own timeline, 4 to 6 weeks, not yours. If your skincare leaves you tight, stinging, or red, that feeling you call clean is the warning sign. Say it back to yourself, that is not purity, that is injury. The tighter it pulls, the more it is telling you to stop. Do less. Let the wall rebuild. And that is the story of how a nightly charcoal face mask, meant to purify, quietly demolished a woman's skin barrier through chronic over-exfoliation. This has been a medical case study.